I've got very quick mornings at home. I wake up, I get dressed, and I leave. Walking and listening to a podcast en route, listening to some music, really helps me start the day. I think the city's a big inspiration on me. I never want to be too far away from the chaos. I couldn't live in the countryside. I want to be around all of the things going on in London. I mean, with this fabric project, I've been looking out specifically for fabric in the wild. And there's so much that you'll see, just like someone's lost abandoned jacket draped over a railing, or like ribbon tied around a tree. And I've got like a whole archive of these photos of my phone of every time I notice something like that. Just noticing the way that they kind of fall or hang naturally, the way that like fabric moves, and try and get some of that inspiration into my work. I think it feeds in, and even if not directly, it ends up in the work somehow. It's a nice community down here. There are people who have been down in this muse for 45 years, and people coming and going. Obviously, there's the Brazilian shop and butchers just opposite. They know I'm Brazilian, so they speak Portuguese to me straight away. And it's really nice to be able to go into the shop and say hi every now and then. Doing this sewing project makes me feel very connected to my Brazilian family through my grandma and my aunties, who did a lot of sewing and still do. My grandma professionally knitted, and that's how she made a living for a while. So I feel like that must have been absorbed. And doing research into this stitching project, into the history of sewing as a domestic craft traditionally that's associated with women, it does make me feel connected to that side of my family and that heritage. The project I'm doing at the moment with the fabric, it's this series called Smock, and it's smocking meters and meters and meters of fabric by hand. This started 18 months ago maybe, just playing around with fabric. There are loads of little samples around the studio of bits that I've done, casting plaster into fabric, kind of playing around with it, seeing how I could change it, make it, I think they still have my language somehow of being this weird, like, bulbous, asymmetrical, wobbly pieces. It's that, being able to experiment and observe and see what weird processes happen. It's the kind of happy accidents, isn't it? It's a meticulous process. For example, for this chair, it was 60 meters of fabric. So it's a lot, because it all gathers, it kind of shrinks. And I stitch it all by hand, and that's kind of part of it. I feel like I learn with my hands, and it calms me. It's kind of therapeutic, the process, especially the kind of repetitive stitching process. It can be really meditative. There's so much research that has gone into the making of the chair, looking at the history of stitching, and also, the personal aspect of incorporating my grandma's trade into what I'm doing now. And also my father's trade. My dad's a carpenter, and then for me building the timber frames, there's a lot of personal, familial history and story that goes into the making of the chair. And so it's embodying all of that, really. The way that I work, I think I start with a purpose, a function, but that can be something that's very minimal. So for like a table, it has to have a flat surface on top that is level, and then everything else is up for interpretation. And I definitely work with function in mind, and then know that I can be as creative, as sculptural, as imaginative as possible outside of those parameters of function. With the chair, for example, I really took care in trying to make it comfortable, making it a chair that people could sit on. And I did all of the upholstery myself and looked into old techniques and methods, and using like horsehair and wool. And it's smocked pleated layers of this ivory fabric, and certain parts of those smocked panels are stuffed with wool, so they become a little bit more voluminous and kind of bulge out from the chair. So it kind of has this hilly landscape thing going onto it, with like bulging bits and depleted bits. It's quite nice because I get to live with all of the rejects, all of the things that didn't quite make it. And I'm not saying that in a harsh way to all of the objects that I'm around, but it's all of the tests and experiments. All of the pieces in my home have a story behind them and a memory of some sort. I have paintings up that my partner actually did that I love. My favourite part of the studio, because they're the things I didn't make, and they're very special to me. I like to live with the pieces in the studio for a few days as well. I never just send them straight out, so I get to see them in different light and from different angles. Objects tell stories, so I hope that these pieces tell a story. My role is almost to write or to tell that first chapter of the story in a way, and then when I hand it over, it's really none of my business what happens to it, and that's kind of the beautiful part. It goes to live in someone else's world and absorbs their life and accumulates their memories and becomes part of their story.